Salaam Alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Let's look at Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala stance. To understand Imam Abu Hanifa's stance, you need to understand one thing. That anybody who rejects a form and a modality, that individual, he has rejected the literal meaning. Because see, these things which come in the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have the word yad, ayn, saq, wajh, etc. These things in their literal meaning have a form. These things in their literal meaning, they all have a form. So if you accept the literal meaning, you have to accept there is a form. This is why the Salafiyah, they have been forced to accept a modality. It's because they have accepted the literal meaning.
The only way we can properly understand Allah's names and attributes is if we understand them the way that the Salaf, the early generation of this ummah, the way they understood these attributes. And that is that we affirm and confirm that which Allah has affirmed to himself in the Quran, and that which our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam affirmed to Allah in his authentic sunnah, in a way that is befitting with his majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala. We affirm like this while staying away from four things. We stay away from the ta'wil, which is to interpretate or to change the meanings from their original and apparent meanings. And we stay away from, secondly, the ta'til, which is to deny these attributes for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed them to himself in the Quran, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they affirm these attributes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his sunnah. So how can we come and we change these meanings from their apparent and clear meanings, and how can we deny them altogether? And then we stay away from the third thing, the takif, which is to say how or to discuss or inquire into the true nature of these attributes. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't discuss how these attributes were in detail.
أيضا السلف يثبتون معاني آيات الصفات وأحاديث الصفات لكن يفوضون كيفية هذه الصفات.
So we need to keep in mind that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself by any trait or attribute, then we must believe in it as is, as it was mentioned in the Quran, without tahrif, which is distortion of the meaning, ta'til, which is negating the meaning, or takyif, which means assigning a manner to the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Al-Badr al-Anwar is a shara of Al-Fiqh al-Akbar. Al-Fiqh al-Akbar, these are the famous works of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. Look what he says. He says, وَلَهُ يَدٌ وَوَجْهٌ وَنَفْسٌ كَمَا ذَكَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has yad, Allah has wajh, Allah has nafs, just like Allah has stated in the Quran. What? Then he says, فَمَا ذَكَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ ذِكْرِ الْيَدْ وَالْوَجْهِ وَالنَّفْسِ فَهُوَ لَهُ صِفَاتٌ بِلَا كَيْفٍ. He says that wajh and yad and nafs, which Allah has stated inside the Quran, فَهُوَ لَهُ صِفَاتٌ, they are the attributes of Allah, بِلَا كَيْفٍ, without a modality.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
This is so crazy. In case you missed that, let's go back and listen again, shall we? This is Abdurrahim McCarthy, Salafi caller.
And then we stay away from the third thing, the takif, which is to say how or to discuss or inquire into the true nature of these attributes.
This is Dr. Muhammad Saleh, Salafi doctor and PhD.
Then we must believe in it as is, as it was mentioned in the Quran, without tahrif, which is distortion of the meaning, ta'til, which is negating the meaning, or takyif, which means assigning a manner to the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
This is Muhammad Nasruddin Al-Albani, world-renowned Salafi Sheikh and Muhaddith.
أيضا السلف يثبتون معاني آيات الصفات وأحاديث الصفات لكن يفوضون كيفية هذه الصفات.
The Salaf used to affirm the meanings of these attributes of Allah. However, they did not delve into the kayfiyah, or the how-ness of these attributes. Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah. Now, I don't know the name of this brother, but quite frankly, if I was to ask him his name, it'd probably go something like,
What is your name? I told you it doesn't matter what your name is.
So for the purpose of this video, his name is AlIslam Productions. And this is AlIslam Productions quoting Imam Abu Hanifa.
Then he says, فَمَا ذَكَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ ذِكْرِ الْيَدِ وَالْوَجْهِ وَالنَّفْسِ فَهُوَ لَهُ صِفَاتٌ بِلَا كَيْفٍ. He says that wajh and yad and nafs, which Allah has stated inside the Quran, فَهُوَ لَهُ صِفَاتٌ. They are the attributes of Allah, بِلَا كَيْفٍ, without a modality.
They are all literally saying the same thing. But wait, there's more. This is AlIslam Productions explaining what Abu Hanifa's Aqidah isn't.
Let's look at Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala stance. To understand Imam Abu Hanifa's stance, you need to understand one thing. That anybody who rejects a form and a modality, that individual, he has rejected the literal meaning. Because see, these things which come in the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you have the word yad, ayn, saq, wajh, etc. These things in their literal meaning have a form. So if you accept the literal meaning, you have to accept there is a form. This is why the Salafiyah, they have been forced to accept a modality. It's because they have accepted the literal meaning.
Now this is AlIslam Productions explaining what Abu Hanifa rahimahullah his Aqidah is.
Al-Badr al-Anwar is a shara of Al-Fiqh al-Akbar. Al-Fiqh al-Akbar, these are the famous works of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. Look what he says. He says, وَلَهُ يَدٌ وَوَجْهٌ وَنَفْسٌ كَمَا ذَكَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has yad, Allah has wajh, Allah has nafs, just like Allah has stated in the Quran. What?
So this is a very obvious and clear contradiction, all in the same video. And the whole purpose of him prefacing his own explanation before giving Abu Hanifa's explanation is because he recognizes he's going to contradict himself, which is why he also said,
now obviously Imam Abu Hanifa, he wasn't an Ash'ari, nor was he a Maturidi.
So that when people like me say,
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right,
he can turn around and say, oh, no. You see, Abu Hanifa said without the kayfiyah, which means rejects the meaning. Which isn't what Abu Hanifa said, nor is that what bidun kayfiyah means. It's a lame Jedi mind trick, and the first time I've ever seen such a bad attempt to rewrite history, language, and the meaning of words. Furthermore, this is not a Salafi versus Ash'ari issue. This is a cultural Muslim versus the changing of the guard issue. That's why AlIslam Productions' cognitive dissonance is so thick. If you put it in a glass, you'd confuse it with mango lassi. Till next time.
Three of these things belong together. Three of these things are kind of the same. But one of these things just doesn't belong here. And now it's time to play our game. It's time to play our game. One of these things just doesn't belong here. Tell me, did you guess which one? If you guessed this thing just doesn't belong here, you're absolutely right. And now my song is done.